Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Kampala Design Podcast. And as usual, I'm your guest, Charles Bossa. And today we are going to dive into an interesting topic. We are talking about core banking systems, business consulting, and you're going to hear a lot about it from our guest today, Joan Kagyezi. Joan Kagyezi is a business consultant that works with one of the largest core banking systems providers in the country. She has worked on a number of projects for banks, MFIs, SACCOs, and all financial institutions that are trying to adopt digital transformation in their operations. So, Joan Kagyezi is going to talk to us today about her experience navigating core banking systems, her experience working in different countries where her work takes her, and her experience regarding how different markets behave and a lot more. So, for anyone that enjoys or that wants to understand how banks work internally on a technical level, this is something that you're going to have to watch from beginning to end. So, sit back and let's get started. Hi, Joanne.
Hi, Charles.
Thank you so much for honoring our invitation.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so we are really, really glad to have you here. And we hope that by the end of this podcast, anyone that will have watched it will have some bit of value, some new knowledge regarding regarding how banks operate. I also have to warn you, this is a design podcast at the very core. So to an extent, we need to understand how your work probably relates or collaborates with product design, user experience design, to ensure that we create the products that we see, especially those that are excelling well in the market. So I wanted to officially welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
All right, so let's start. When I first requested you to come onto the podcast, I remember asking you about your title. It's a little bit confusing because I rarely see people in the bank having that sort of that sort of title. But I also believe that probably the structures within which you operate could be different from the structures within which different banks operate. So if you were asked what you do in very, very simple terms, how would you describe yourself in that regard?
Thank you, Charles. By title, I am a business consultant. However, in terms of the work that I do, you would relate me to the applications manager. But in regards to Neptune, business consultant does not necessarily um, do consultation in terms of the system. It goes beyond the system. We do financial consultations, we do accountancy consultations. So you have to be broader, you have to have a broader picture of what finances are, what the financial systems are for you to guide the bank. But ideally, in terms of the banking sector, you would relate to need to the applications manager.
Applications manager. So if you were in a bank, let's say embedded in its systems, what would your work, let's say, on a normal day be like?
On a normal day, applications manager ensures that the system is up and running, and the users are having the good feel of the system, and they interpret any errors that come about any day, and they also support, let me say, knowledge gap, because the system may be wide and the users sometimes are very inquisitive. So you have to be sure of what the users bring on the table, and then you revert them. So it's more of helping the users understand the system, then also solve a few challenges, if any, in the system. Overall, basically, that's all. Though the challenges may come from different angles, from database, application to network, so you need to be aware.
Uh, Okay, there is one thing that I think I need to bring to the attention of our users, because we are talking about systems, we are talking about applications and so on. But to put it into context, I want you to paint a picture of what your current employer is within the market. Because from what I gather, your current employer is a core banking systems provider. In other words, you're providing certain financial systems. Core to them, I think, is the system called the core banking system, and you're giving it to organizations who, upon expansion, require that bit of digital transformation in order to have their works uh, aligned with. So try and explain to us what probably what a core banking system is and what it does in an institution.
Okay, let me start from now. The bank itself. We know that the major purpose of banks is to save your money and also give you loans. Those are the major purposes of the bank. So if I'm to say the core functionality of banks, I would say saving, keeping deposits for customers, and also lending customers the same money. Now, when it comes to my company and the core banking system, we majorly offer the system that does exactly that.
Okay.
That can allow you to save the money and also allow you to get loans. So the core comes in because of the banking core functionality.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So let's say there is let's say deep down in our village, we've organized a group of people, we would say 500 at least, and say on a daily, we sort of collect money from each and every individual. And at the end of the month, we balance our books and we get a particular amount. But then later on, realize that it is very, very, very stressing. And we need to have digital means of, say, managing all of this. How does your employer then come into this in order to try and solve such a problem?
Now, besides us having the core banking system, we do different applications and integrate with the system. And these different applications may include mobile banking, may include ATM, may include agency banking. So if you're that group in the village and you collect your money and it's hectic for you to get on a taxi to the nearby town, then get to the bank, the best you can do if there isn't any telecom near you that does telecom mobile banking is you deposit the money on your phone and then you transfer it to your account. And even with your phone, we can allow you open up an account. We can give you a functionality to ask for loans to save your money. So you deposit the money on the phone, you use the mobile banking application, and then you push the money to your account in that bank. So our system is in the middle between you, the group, and the bank. It bridges that gap.
So do you have one size fit all, or this depends on whatever requirements a particular customer might want?
It can't be one size fit.
Okay.
It can never be. Because what your needs are may not be my needs. So what we do, we customize according to each customer's needs. Yes, so we do what we call the requirement gathering or the needs assessment, and then we customize the system.
Okay. So, okay. there is something I'm also getting. If you are a systems provider in the market, that means you are providing this system to quite a number of institutions.
Sure.
Is that where the term business consultant comes in? Because you're sort of like dealing with a number of institutions to help you manage the systems better.
It is actually not even about the system.
Mm,
It is about helping the bank's business prevail.
mm.
So if I can give you a system that is going to grow your business and I have the knowledge about your business and you consult me about the system.
Mm.
So my name, if you give me a name, a business consultant would suit me well.
Okay.
Because I know your business. You're consulting me about your business in regards to the system I've given you. So yeah.
Okay. So assuming I'm a bank and I feel like there are certain limitations, say to my current system, because I've read somewhere in the news. I usually get headlines, say on LinkedIn, where they say such and such a bank has migrated from this core banking system to a new core banking system. What do you think, in your experience, what do you think usually leads to a bank to try and make such a move?
Most of the times it comes about due to regulation, central bank regulation.
Okay.
For example, if you have been a bank if you have been an MFI, microfinance, or an MDI, and you hit that threshold that is supposed to push you to another tier, and you become a partner.
Yes.
It means that if the system is not supporting the central bank requirements for a bank, the system requirements for a bank, they will suggest to you to upgrade.
Okay.
So what usually happens is that you have to either move from this old system, the new system that suits the banking level you're getting to, or if your system can be upgraded, you may maintain it, and then they upgrade it with a few functionality. So when they say that we are migrating, it means that you're moving data from this old system. Now data, I mean customers' records, from this old system to the new system that suits the regulation. Or sometimes it may be the bank's needs. For example, you have a system that does not allow you to integrate a mobile bank, and yet you want to expand your market to other places where banks cannot get. So what you do, you purchase a new system that allows you to integrate the different applications.
And that's how you come in.
And that's how we can.
That's money. Because I think there is always something to think about in terms of dollars. Whenever you see a headline such as that, how expensive do you think such systems are? If I may ask.
Uh-uh. I may not speak to all, but it's some money. Yes,
Some money.
some money.
So, from what I gather, your employer has a foot in very many markets in Africa, and that means that there could be a financial institution that you could be serving at one point in those countries. Do you see any differences in the type of products that you could be having in one of those markets, but it may not necessarily be available here, or probably the preferences of people in certain markets that may not necessarily be here?
Yes. That's very true. Markets are different. I remember this one time I was in Mozambique and they brought up a requirement for provision. For those that don't understand, provision is that when we give out a loan to you as a customer, we start assuming that you may not pay. So we start putting aside some money every day that we assume you won't pay. So in this case, we usually provision for the principal. But when we went to Mozambique, they told us to provision for interest, which was a functionality that we never had in the system.
But for them, they had it it's what they wanted in the market.
It's a central bank regulation in Mozambique. So at some point, we had to customize the system to suit their requirements. So everywhere we go, it's a different case. So you sit down with the bank, understand what their needs are, put them down on paper, and then you see how they are designed in the system by the other team.
All right. So if you are the person that, say, your employer positions to be the contact between the company and the client, that means that there is a lot of feedback that you're constantly giving back to, let's say, that technical team back at office.
Yes.
What usually comprises, what then comprises the technical team at office?
So the technical team, we have the ones that do the product development.
Those are the devs.
Not necessarily. Yes, I think. Let me split. I think they may be the devs, or they may be the ones that design the product.
You have the devs. You also have the designers.
Yes. So if I bring a customer's need and I tell you this bank needs us to provision for interest, it's not in the system. So I give you a write-up. This is how we want it working. So it is. I hand it over now to the design office. So the design people are the ones now that do the actual functionality of that of the requirement.
The different flows.
Yes, perfect. The different flows, and then they hand over to the development team. So the development team develops the functionality and hands over back to us, the business consultants. So we do the rigorous tests to confirm that actually what we have developed suits what we gathered or what we got from the bank.
I think from the start of this podcast, there has been some bit of confusion, because we are trying to navigate a world that a lot of our listeners or people watching us are not familiar with. Majority of them are used to creating, customer-facing, applications, not necessarily systems that are used by internal, let's say, staff in organizations such as banks. And I have heard somewhere where now designers, like I told you, this is a design podcast. And when I hear that once we get, either complaints or issues or requirements that we are not familiar with in our market, since we are working in a different market, the next stage is then for you to write this down, send it back at HQ, and at HQ they then call in the designers to design the floors and the architecture before development comes in. So for a person that is into design, I believe this is where you come in, and that means that there is a lot of room for you in coming up with such solutions. And yeah, I think this is getting interesting now, since we've talked about design, and we are now going to get onto our next question, which is, we in the East African region, we are very, very, very much integrated with something called mobile money. We also have a lot of players in the financial technology sector, which obviously I believe in other markets they are, but we have some bit of uniqueness here. How have you as an organization tried to adjust yourselves to try and accommodate all these financial technology, companies and their products that tend to come in and work within the the core banking systems that you design?
Okay. That that's a wide question, but I'll try to sum it up.
Yes.
Yes, we have positioned ourselves to do a lot of integrations with very many fintech companies, but mostly, if you look at what the banks need in Uganda generally, and even East Africa, it's almost the same. Almost the same. Because you'll find that the apps that the customers interface with have similar requests. Withdraw, deposit, mini statement, loan application. They are almost the same. What makes it different is the different third parties now that we are dealing with.
The fintechs.
The fintechs. So you find that in Uganda you have Pegasus, you have some other third parties.
We have those ones that are so much into school fees payments.
We have
agriculture.
agency, we have agriculture. There are many, but the banks define what they want, and they also provide the third party for us to deal with. So what we do is we give them the functionality that we have, which are the standard ones that I mentioned. Then whatever is extra is now what we work on and fine tune with the third party to suit the bank's needs. So for example, the school fees school fees payments, you'll find you have service school. You have there's another company I've forgotten, sorry.
I see a product called Sure Pay in the market.
Now those are different because every bank brings up its product. You can go to a bank, you find Sure Pay, which is also a school fees product. You go to another bank, it has school pay. It's also a school fees product. The functionality is the same. The naming is what differentiates which bank it belongs to. Yes. But we are able to integrate with them depending on the requirements or the needs the bank gives them and what the third parties can accommodate. So it's a back and forth, a negotiation and agreement. Yes, that mainly we try as much as possible to give the banks what they need. Yes.
There is this understanding. I attended a certain financial technology. I think it was an end of year. I wouldn't call it a party. It was an engagement that was bringing different fintechs together, and there was a lot of back and forth between fintechs and arguing it out in a sense of banks are not giving us what we want. We are suffering a lot with banks having maybe older systems and so on. What are the challenges that you have faced in trying to help in the integration of financial technology softwares with banking software that you provide?
So mainly you'll find the banks doing the conventional bank. For example, what I mean by conversion is you get into the banking wall, deposit your money, withdraw your money, and go. But here we have a company that wants to provide to integrate with the bank. For example, Airtel or Telecom or MTN, sorry. They want to integrate with the bank. So for them, they are looking at how fast can we serve the customer. And then the bank is looking at how the governance bit and the system change and upgrade. It's a lot of process. So you have to, there is need at some point for the banks to calm down a little bit on the processes so that they can accommodate the fintechs. And truth be told, banks are great because you can't just expose customer data in. But again, also the fintech world has showed us that you have to serve the customers at a snap. So how best can we now look at the bank that is trying to do the governance and security and all that vis-a-vis satisfying the customer. So there's still a bit of a gap. But us as the core banking, what we usually measure on is what the bank. Because it is the banks that we are supplying the core banking system. And it is the core banking system that we are integrating the different fintech application or working the different fintech. So we try as much as possible to meet the bank's requirement. And we also wish that the fintech can also appreciate where the banks are coming from. But at the moment, the gap is being breached. The gap is being breached, and we are seeing customer satisfaction levels going up. Actually, if you notice, you'll find that the transactions done in the banking hall right now are very few compared to what is done on the mobile or telecom company.
Because of the digital transformation that has been, brought about by the services that you provide.
Exactly, because I don't see a need why I should walk into the bank to deposit, yet I have an agent banking just next door to my home. So it's still in the process, but we are getting there.
You have worked in a number of countries, serving different, different banks.
Yeah.
What stands out as, let's say, the most interesting country that you've worked in, and why?
I would say Ethiopia.
Okay. Why? Why so?
And the reason why I'm saying it stands out is that it has a lot of bureaucracy. You don't just infiltrate their system.
Okay.
Even when we're implementing integrations with different, for example, the EFTs, the RTGS, it is a totally different process.
What is an RTGS? And there's another one, just say for our listeners and people that are not necessarily familiar with it.
RTGS is real time gross payments. Then TT is telegraphic transfer.
Okay.
All of them they transfer money. The difference is that with RTGS, it hits the same day. There is a specific period it has to hit. Then the TT may take 1 or 2 days, depending on the country and their procedures. Yes.
I think that works. So the Ethiopians, you're explaining something about.
Yes, their bureaucracies too much.
Why do you think that? Why do you think that is so?
Because as a country, they have decided to, which word can I use, to be landlocked. They don't easily allow to work with the outside world. It takes processes for you to transact.
They are gatekeeping their economy.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. So it makes the whole process of integration very hard.
I looked through your LinkedIn, and it shows that you worked at DHL
Express.
Yes, DHL Express before you then transitioned into core banking. What exactly did you do at DHL, and how exactly did you then make the transition to get into core banking?
Yes, at DHL I worked in different capacities. I remember I had just left campus. I joined as an accounts assistant.
Okay.
So after working so hard and I was appreciated, I was made a cashier.
Okay.
A cashier at DHL is a big man because of the volumes of sales. So after that, I was taken to be the billing accountant. So I left DHL as a billing accountant. Then I joined Neptune as an accountant. So 1 year down the road, I was unpicked and told that there's a business slot in the IT department. They needed someone who had the accounting and finance knowledge. So that's how I transitioned now to the IT department in my company, and I had to learn the IT on job.
Oh, because I wanted to ask you again something. But you are dealing with systems. That means there are certain IT requirements that you should be having. You're pulling information from the database. You're analyzing a lot of data. So I was wondering how now the IT came into this. At what point?
IT is purely on job training,
Eh?
but my background and profession is finance
Okay.
and accounting. But I quickly grasped because with the knowledge of finance and accounting, it's easy to understand the system, the core banking, because it being a financial system, a banking system, it has accounting and finance principles.
Okay.
So I easily transition to learn the core banking system.
So, okay, for a person that you think is still in the education pipeline, and let's say after listening to what we just, discussed, seems to have an interest in getting into this field, or probably they would want to be employed by your current employer. What do you think is the career decisions that they can take? One, from where they are in school, and let's say at university, and then later on, if they're to join the market, how do you think they can project their career such that they land into this kind of work?
I think now that depends on what they're doing at campus.
Okay.
Because with our economy, we have learned that the course you do at campus sometimes may not be the path to your breadwin.
Yes, all right. Yes, all right.
Yes. So whichever course you're doing at campus, if you're sure that you want to get into the field of IT, to the field of business consulting, just get into IT course or get into a finance course and do it.
Okay.
So if you've been doing an IT course, it will be easy for you now to come and learn the finance because the company I work for is technical. It's an IT company. So you can easily learn on job the finance. If you're coming from an agriculture sector, it's better to first do a course that is either in finance or IT because those are the basics the company I work. You either know the finance and accounting or you know the IT and learn the other.
There is a scenario that I wanted to paint, and that scenario is for the case of something going wrong. You have deployed a system. I don't know how long it usually takes in terms of, let's say, contract signing with a client, but then all of a sudden you've gone live. But then, let's say 2 days later, you realize there is something completely wrong with the system. How would you how would you go about such a panic moment? I would say.
Those are unavoidable because we are human beings and sometimes maybe we may skip some processes. However, the process of implementing a software has stages. And these stages include vigorous testing of the system in and out. You confirm that whatever has been working yesterday is still working. So assuming you have gone live, handed over the system to the bank and you find that error. The good thing with our company is we have a period we call post-go live support.
Okay.
That period we are on site and we are supporting whatever challenges come out of the system. Yeah, we are still dealing with our development team, with our change management board. So whatever comes up, you rest assured that you will deal with those teams to correct. Unless if it is a challenge that is going to shut down the banking operations. Now that one you don't sleep. You do not sleep. You will have to work tirelessly throughout the night. Whatever processes you go through, the bank does not want to know because at the end of the day, it has to serve a customer. So it's a panic mode, but as an implementation consultant, you have to know the problem has to be fixed at whatever cost.
Okay.
Yes.
So essentially, what you do is digital transformation, and from the very little knowledge I got, you're dealing with design thinking in order to help understand, redefine problems and so on, and then come up the different creative flows. You're dealing with agile project management in terms of now implementing whatever designs that you worked on. And then you're dealing with change management, trying to organize things into buying into this new particular, software, in this case, probably the systems that you provide them. So in your experience, where do you think you find the most challenges? Is it the systems themselves as you're implementing them, or the people and the maybe the problems that you pass through in trying to train them into using these systems? Who do you think gives you, the hardest time?
That's a tricky question. But in my view, the people are the most hard section in a project that you have to deal with. Because
Okay.
one,
Mm.
you have to convince them to buy.
Okay.
And then naturally, there are some people that are anti-change. Once they know there's a system change, yet they're used to another system, it is a problem. They object you from the onset. System may not be much of a challenge because it is designed and developed by people. So it doesn't need a lot of hassle. As long as you understand what you need to develop, it's easy. But convincing a person that this functionality is going to add value to your business, this is how it should work. Yet for them, they're used to a certain way of working. It's the hardest. So personally, when I'm implementing, I try as much as possible to ensure that the people I am training or the users love what I'm training. I will go back and forth for them to appreciate. Unless they appreciate, they will not work with that system. That's when you go live and they tell you system is not working. Not necessarily that system is not working, but the person just doesn't work with the system. So attitudes matter. Attitudes are a very big factor in system implementation.
All right. So again, going back to your experience navigating different African markets, if you're to make a comparison, comparing Uganda to all the markets that you've been in, how do we rank as a country, as a market, in terms of our systems in bank?
I think in Uganda, banking systems don't seem like there are so many for the outside world.
Yeah.
But when you within the banking sector, they are actually many. And they are being used and picked on by the banking sector. I would say that we are growing as a banking sector. Yeah. Because back then you'll find people were still using the passbooks. I remember back then they used, was it in Ghana Commercial Bank, would have those books where you write saving, you deposit 50. Right now you can't find that book anywhere. But there are some countries you go to and they're still using those. Yes. So for me, Uganda is at a very high speed in terms of digital transformation. It is way high compared to other countries.
What do you think in your experience? What do you think our banks can do to have an improvement? Just one thing that you think our banks can have an improvement.
To have an improvement on the banking software or in general?
Probably on the software.
The software. I think, in my view, the improvement I would want to see banks do is to appreciate and maximize or utilize these softwares maximally. And by this I mean you don't look at the applications that you can integrate alone. there are also basic functionalities in the system that we can use as bank internally. Because if you look at our system, it has the procurement, it has HR modules, it has fixed asset modules. But you find a bank that is doing deposits and loans does not want to think about the fixed asset module.
Is it because they don't think they exist, or they're just probably being adamant?
I think they haven't. They are being adamant because they have not given time to see the potential of that module. Any bank has assets, buildings, cars, chairs, all those can be maintained in our system.
And you already have them as modules in the system.
We have them.
Wow.
But when you're selling, their core is we want a system that can do deposits, loans, but we have so many modules. So I wish they can look at the system wholesome and appreciate the different modules that are in there. Even the HR module alone. Imagine being able to pay your workers in the same system, approve their leave in the same system, appraise them in the same system, rather than having different system that you're working with as a bank. So for me, I think the banks have so many systems sometimes that are not necessary in my view that they can get in our banking system.
Wow.
Yes.
I think that's a good one, because majority of people tend to think that when you talk of core banking systems, all the systems that service providers usually sell to banks, they tend to think that they are only concentrated on the financial aspect of the bank, and forget that it comes as a full package with a complete management system of how banks can manage their internal affairs and so on. So I think that's a good one. So very, very, very glad to have hosted you today. We hope that we can learn more and more and more about core banking systems and the banking sector at large. I had a friend of mine, I think today's birth, asking me whether we still have enough room, especially us as designers, to enter into banking, and their understanding of what happens or what transpires in banking operations in terms of IT is mostly limited to the products that they see facing them as clients. But as you've heard on this podcast, there is quite a lot that goes on internally in the bank before you see the products that they actually put out in the market. And I am glad that we've been able to expound on most of those internal processes and the systems that help these banks operate internally, the same systems that help link with the products that we see in the market. So I hope that as time goes on, we can try to get more knowledge about these particular systems. And of course, for anyone that wants to have a deeper conversation, we shall be bringing in more and more people to expound on the same matter. All I can say is stay tuned to the Kampala Design Podcast, and you'll have these very good conversations. So for today, we are going to have to leave it at this, and hope that the next podcast episode will be also fruitful to you and profitable in terms of knowledge. So thank you so much for being a part of us. Bye bye. See you in the next episode.